Yeah, that's the good stuff right here. Hard, soft literature. Yeah. I mean, sort of, kind of. I tell you what, I'll check it out. You know, I'm not normally one to destroy books, but I'm just kind of big for it. Hiya, folks. Fruit and Doggy here to do another book discussion. Today I'm discussing Virus 13 by Joshua Allen Perry. It is just around 300 pages long and was published in 2013. Just going to read the book summary real quick, but it is a science fiction style. It says a thriller. I don't know if I'd quite call it a thriller, but yeah, sci-fi. Scientist James Logan and his wife Linda have their dream careers at the world's leading biotech company, Gene Firm Incorporated. But their happiness is interrupted by a devastating bioterrorist attack, a deadly superflu that quickly becomes a global pandemic. The Gene Firm complex goes into lockdown, and Linda's research team is sent to high-security underground labs to develop a vaccine. Above ground, James learns that Gene Firm security has been breached and Linda is in danger. To save her, he must confront a desperate terrorist, armed government agents, and an invisible killer, Virus 13. And I'm just going to put this out here. There's going to be spoilers throughout this story because ultimately I don't like how the story winds up going, and a lot of that has to do with the... how to put it? Who winds up being involved and what roles some of these people wind up playing. And frankly, how it all pans out in the end. I thought it was really pretty crappy, to be entirely honest. And to address a possible question, ACU baseball, I have no idea what that is. I got this shirt secondhand because, if nothing else, I love purple. And this is a great purple shirt, so I don't really care about the little ACU baseball thing. It's like, oh man, you got your clothes secondhand. Yeah, what of it? But anyways, going back in the story, theoretically, the main character of the book, the main protagonist, is James Logan. Though throughout the story, you'll wind up going through a couple of different perspectives, or at least the story will focus on a few people in particular. For instance, I guess I will back up slightly. One thing to know about the world in this story, it's slightly in the future where people are able to modify their genes. And some people have made modifications purely for aesthetics. One person made themselves, or their children, sort of like a punk rock style. Instead of having to get tattoos, you can change the way somebody's skin tone looks, their hair color, etc., etc. So some people basically made designer children. One person is basically like a chameleon or an octopus, able to change their skin tone, able to effectively become invisible, as long as they're able to maintain a solid color, match their environment, and just kind of not draw attention through movement. Excuse me. And two people like that, their perspectives become fairly important in the story. But I suppose what bothers me most is that the theoretical main character, James Logan, or at least with the way the story sets itself up, with the way he's prominent throughout, it seems that he'd be the main character. And again, the way the book summary is written, even though there's other characters that are prominent, it talks about him trying to rescue Linda. But he's really ineffectual as a hero. He does almost nothing. He has a medical problem early on, then he's recovering. He tries to burst in on the scene and be the action hero, but
either somebody upstages him or he's kidnapped easily. He just really does almost nothing. He just kind of flounders through the story, and I just thought it was really inept. I thought it made for a really inept, uninteresting hero. Now, what's funny is at one moment, he actually does something somewhat heroic and somewhat right, but it's effectively just when he's trying to get to the area where his kids are. And so at that moment, I sort of predicted and was ultimately correct that it's like, okay, this is where he'll succeed. This is where he'll burst on to the scene to go, reconnect. That's not quite the exact word I'm looking for, but to be with his children again. It's like, aha, I found you. You're safe. But I suppose to, again, go directly into the spoiler territory of the story, this company, they modified people's genes and they've effectively developed a cure for cancer. So, as long as your genes are modified, you will never develop cancer. You'll always be immune to that disease. But for whatever reason, within this company, the person leading it decides, you know what? That was a big mistake. We shouldn't have done that because now people will stop evolving. Humankind will stop evolving because we have modified their DNA and they're now resistant to mutations. That's how people are resistant to cancer. So we've some of the newer generation, we've modified their DNA so that they don't have this gene in effect. So now you're able to die of cancer, but I'm sorry, it gets a little convoluted. So we've set off a few people out of the entire population who are now susceptible to cancer, but everybody else we're going to basically hit with a disease that targets that gene and is lethal. And where the title comes from, Virus 13, in theory, this super virus was designed with 13 different strains. So you'd have to come up with 13 different cures in order to deal with it. But the people who are working on this vaccine, who are trying to figure it out and solve it, they don't know that. The wicked evil company that's gone completely off the rails, has gone completely insane, they are basically one step ahead of the government and anybody who would be trying to deal with this issue. And ultimately what happens is they succeed. You know, this rogue, maniacal individual who basically wants to be a despot, rule over the world of a select number of people, he succeeds. Now he doesn't survive, and a few other people who were part of the conspiracy, they don't survive to see through and be new leaders of this world, but their dreams, their wishes come to fruition. And what's ironic too is one of the things that this group was working on was not exactly immortality, but an expanded lifespan. Yep, they figured it out. It works. And again, part of the irony is they don't get to enjoy the benefit, but the survivors do. And basically, all of the first half of the book or so is kind of a general sci-fi thriller where they're trying to deal with this terroristic attack of this group or whoever's trying to kill off all these people with a super virus. Then the next portion is you're starting to discover who's involved and kind of the outrageousness of that and their success. And then the very end, more or less the epilogue, it shows the aftermath of all of this chaos. And yeah, everybody got wiped out. except for those select few, but it's somewhat of a utopia because they live in a small community, they're tight knit, they've come together, they almost somewhat worship a few of the people who, in theory, were the heroes who tried to address the problem. And it's just so ridiculous. And I'll admit, I'm a fan of the sappy ending, but this was so much of the bad guys get away with it. The bad guys succeed. The bad guys are these horrendously evil, wicked, terrible, absolutely insane people, but nobody else had any inkling of that. There was no indication they were woo woo, and they win. They don't survive, but they win. So yeah, I'll mention that the front of the book has a dollar store dollar sticker on it, and I definitely see why now. This book I thought was really terrible. Now, having said that, I don't think the author made the best decision ultimately with the way the story turned out, but I want to give them some room or some credit because that was a fairly bold decision. That takes some guts to throw off the stereotypical standards where the good guys are victorious, where they stop the madness. Maybe just in the nick of time, there was a 3-minute window, and whew, that was close. That was way too close for comfort, but they managed to make it just in time. It's like, no, the bad guys got away with it. So it's a little bit bittersweet. I will give them, again, some credit for that. I will give them a bit of grudging respect. But I just don't think it made up for a satisfying story. If nothing else, I think maybe if the book had focused on a few more elements, or if it was longer, if it could have shown there was a conspiracy, but perhaps within that small group, within this tight-knit organization, because as a few people kind of found out about this, they're like, you guys are nuts, what the heck are you guys doing? I think that could have worked out better to have the story develop where a few people maybe start to get wind, maybe their suspicion starts to arise, maybe they start trying to investigate, check into the upper levels, and then they find out about the conspiracy, and it's like, whoa, this is way above our heads. And I think that could have made for a better story, where, before they even start taking their actions trying to spread the super virus, people are starting to catch wind. Maybe that starts to throw off their plans, and maybe it forces their hands, like, okay, we got to do this now, even though it's not fully developed. Maybe it's not as lethal as we would like, or it's not as infectious as we would have wanted it to be. That could have had a bit of a better balance, but as it is, it was so the odds were stacked overwhelmingly in their favor, because they were always one step ahead. They were the ones who were contacted to cure the disease. And what I found really weird is, in this theoretical future, why would only one company be at the forefront of this kind of technology? Wouldn't a few companies, be working on these matters? Because advanced medical science is not just within the domain of a single organization or agency. But I think that'd be what I'd recommend overall, is to really develop that sense of suspense to instead of having the odds so staggered and stacked, offset a little bit, Maybe give them a lead, gave them a power advantage, maybe some networking and connections, but, make it so that it's on more even odds. Make it so the good guys have a chance. And maybe they don't succeed. Maybe they won't stop the bad guys. Maybe something terrible does happen. But I would also argue that in theory, doing the unexpected can in itself sometimes be the expected thing to do. That's why I say that's kind of a grudging respect. It's like, oh hey, the bad guys won this time. See what I did there? But I'm not going to allow them to just be victorious dictators. They also get their comeuppance. So I felt like that was a little bit of a sign that it's like, I'm not going to go all the way. I'm going to restrain that a little bit, even if it's not truthfully with how the story's set up that realistic. They probably should have gotten away with it. But that's just my interpretation. Honestly, by the time I was done with the story, I was really just completely disgruntled. I was really sick of it. I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. So, I will give it a little bit of credit. I'll give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. It's like, if nothing else, showcasing a bad idea executed. That you shouldn't just do the unexpected for the sake of it. But I would ultimately just burn it. I don't think it's worth reading. But that's just my hot take. But anyways, that's going to be all for now, folks. I'll see you around. Hope you enjoyed. And as always, fruit and doggy.
Yes, there really is nothing quite like curling up with a fine piece of literature, if you know what I mean.